Hi, everyone. One thing that should be kept in the back of our mind as we approach the midterm elections is that there are many issues that are on the table. One of the issues has to do with healthcare. And unfortunately, for so many millions of Americans, that particular issue costs a whole lot of money for so many people. The bills come in, and the question is how to pay it. Well, I'm a big believer in the private sector stepping up. Now, how does that happen? Well, the idea to me is actually pretty simple. It was promoted almost 30 to 40 years ago. You see, when President Reagan was in office, he did not like what he considered to be the federal unemployment program. He thought it was very inefficient. So what he did was he promoted private enterprise to do the job that the federal government had been doing. What do I mean? Well, during the 1980s, we had a pretty steep recession. So companies were forced to streamline. One particular area that they streamlined was human resources. How did they streamline human resources? They streamlined human resources by farming it out to private companies. What they did is they either paid for or helped to support companies that would do recruiting for them. That's where we heard of the thing called temporary employment agencies. Yeah, I know you don't see much of those anymore, but they were a big, big thing in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Basically, a person would go into an office, they would sit down, take a test, and then the person who was representing that company would say, "We've got 3 or 4 openings that would fit your skills." And they would therefore refer them to that company. And sometimes it would work out, sometimes it didn't. But it gave a company a chance to invite somebody new into their sphere, and they wouldn't have to have the overhead costs of HR. Now, that helped because during that deep recession, they still needed people to work, but they had to find a way to have them work in a more reasonable price range. These private companies boomed. They flourished all over because there were more people who needed to work. They went to these agencies, and these agencies helped them find work, and they were big for many years. You say, okay, what does that have to do with healthcare? Very simple. Companies need to invest in their employees and maybe in the community. How can they do that? By doing the same kind of thing. Instead of bloating their HR with all kinds of unnecessary financial burdens, they should support private companies to start up to invite people to, in fact, invest in plans. Therefore, they can negotiate with different healthcare providers so that plans could be purchased by individuals at a lower rate, and they could also have coverage when they need it most. The private companies are the negotiators. They are like the middlemen. The businesses and other entities that have money pump money into these private corporations that then act as a middleman to help lower the cost of what would be average everyday plans. And yes, always remember, pre-existing conditions must be a part of this plan. That's the only way to make sure that people who are in need really are cared for. Now, why is this a practical plan? One reason is it works. It worked 40 years ago to rebound an economy, and I believe it can work today to help people be able to afford the coverage that they need. There you have it, folks. I know, sounds simple, but I believe it works. And now that the elections are a few weeks away, I would love to see a congressman come forward and say, here's the plan. that the private sector can really be a part of. Something to think about, friends. Thank you.